السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Continuing with the transmitters of the Muwatta, we will inshallah very briefly mention about more narrators, and then we will dedicate the remaining of the time to discuss Yahya ibn Yahya al-Laythi. Yahya ibn Yahya is the student whose transmission inshallah we're going to be doing. So the next student is Abdullah ibn Yusuf al-Tinnisi. So he is Abdullah ibn Yusuf al-Kala'i. Alama Dhahabi rahimahullah describes him as الشيخ الإمام الحافظ المتقن أبو محمد الكلاعي الدمشقي ثم التنيسي. He had the Muwatta from Imam Malik rahimahullah in the year 166 Hijri. Abu Musir, he mentions that سمع معي الموطأ من مالك سنة 66. So that means he heard the Muwatta from Imam Malik rahimahullah 13 years before Imam Malik rahimahullah could pass away. Yahya ibn Ma'in rahimahullah, he regarded him as the most reliable person who narrated the Muwatta. In Tarikh Dimashq, Alama ibn Asakir rahimahullah, in volume 33 on page 397, he transmits the different wording of Yahya ibn Ma'in. He said, ما بقي أحد على وجه الأرض أوثق في الموطأ من Abdullah ibn Yusuf. That there is no one who remains on this earth who is more reliable in transmitting the Muwatta than Abdullah ibn Yusuf. And on another occasion, he said, ما بقي على أديم الأرض أحد أصدق في الموطأ من Abdullah ibn Yusuf al-Tinnisi. Now, just for interest, since we are in the month of Ramadan, so before this year in Tarikh Dimashq, he mentions Abdullah ibn Yusuf. He says that how he heard the Muwatta. He says, سماعي الموطأ عرض الحنيني عرض عليه الحنيني مرتين. Thereafter he says, وكان الحنيني, this حنيني إذا دخل شهر رمضان ترك سماع الحديث. That he would know in the month of Ramadan he wouldn't hear hadith. So isn't we doing the Muwatta of Imam Malik? So we follow the advice of Imam Malik. So Imam Malik asked him, يا أبا يعقوب لما تترك سماع الحديث في رمضان إن كان فيه شيء يكره في رمضان فهو في غير رمضان يكره. So this is what Imam Malik rahmallah told him. Why are you not reading hadith in the month of Ramadan? If it's makruh to read a hadith in the month of Ramadan, then even out of Ramadan it will be makruh. So this is a proof on why it's beneficial for us to inshallah have these durus in the month of Ramadan. Nevertheless, Imam Bukhari rahimahullah narrated lots and lots from him. علماء مزي رحمه الله يروت والبخاري مع شدة استقصائه اعتمد عليه في مالك وغيره. And the reason why Imam Bukhari rahimahullah narrated so much from him is because Imam Bukhari rahimahullah regarded him as the most reliable from all the Shami narrators. He said, كان من أثبت الشاميين. Imam Bukhari rahimahullah said that he is the most reliable from all the narrators of Sham. And Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, he also gives details. He explains when he met him. He said, لقيته بمصر سنة 17 و200. I met him in the year 217 Hijri. Abdullah ibn Yusuf al-Tinnisi passed away in the year 218 Hijri. So that means Imam Bukhari rahimahullah was just lucky. He met him 1 year before he passed away. In Tarikh Dimashq, Muhammad ibn Asbagh, he says, مات Abdullah ibn Yusuf al-Tinnisi سنة 18 و200. And he was 80 years old when he passed away. وله نحو من 80 سنة رحمه الله تعالى. This is mentioned in Mizan al-I'tidal in volume 2 on page 528. The next narrator is Abdullah ibn Muslim al-Qa'nabi. So he is also a very reliable transmitter of the Muwatta, and he is another student who spent 2 decades studying under Imam Malik rahimahullah. Now, from all the different riwayat of the Muwatta, his transmission, his riwayah of the Muwatta is the largest, it's the longest. So he has the most additional contents. And in spite of having the most additional information within his Muwatta, there were many scholars who also regarded him to be the soundest of all those who narrated the Muwatta. So you can see there's differences of opinion that we mentioned yesterday, how Ibn Hajar rahimahullah insisted that Athbatun Nas on the Muwatta has to be Imam Shafi'i. Others mentioned Ibn Wahab. And then we quoted now from Abdullah ibn Yusuf al-Tinnisi. Actually, Yahya ibn Ma'in, he mentioned both names. So we quoted Nasr ibn Marzuq. He quoted the response that Yahya ibn Ma'in gave to him when he asked about the narrators of the Muwatta. Then Yahya ibn Ma'in mentioned two names. So he mentioned Abdullah ibn Muslim al-Qa'nabi, and he also mentioned Abdullah ibn Yusuf al-Tinnisi. So in the previous transmissions, he only mentioned one name, Abdullah ibn Yusuf al-Tinnisi, but on other occasions, Yahya ibn Ma'in said, no, they are two strongest narrators. And then he took Abdullah ibn Muslim al-Qa'nabi's name as well. And this here is also the view of Imam Nasa'i rahimahullah and the teacher of Imam Bukhari, Ali ibn al-Madini rahimahullah. So in his Nukat on Muqaddamah ibn al-Salam, Alama ibn Hajar rahimahullah, he says, Inna al-Qa'nabiyya أثبت الناس في الموطأ هكذا أطلقه علي بن المديني والنسائي. And he was well respected in transmitting hadith. Ibn Abdul Barr rahimahullah, he mentions that Abu Zur'a was asked about him. So Abu Zur'a is known to be a critic, yet he said, ما كتبت عن أحد أجل في عيني منه. That he is, I never wrote hadith from anyone greater than him. So Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, he narrates from him in his Sahih like around 140 times. And Imam Muslim rahimahullah, he related from him around 74 times in his Sahih. And then Abdullah ibn Muslim, he also has a few additional narrations in his Muwatta which others do not have. For example, he narrates أخبرنا مالك عن ابن شهاب عن عبيد الله بن عبد الله بن عتبة بن مسعود عن ابن عباس أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا تطروني كما أطرت النصارى عيسى بن مريم إنما أنا عبد فقولوا عبده ورسوله. So this here doesn't come in the other transmissions of the Muwatta. There was the old print of this kitab, and then Abdul Majid al-Turki, he recently published his print. However, his print is not regarded as the best of prints because he is accused of actually distorting the entire kitab. And the reason is that he went to go mix up with the riwayah of Yahya ibn Yahya al-Laythi with the riwayah of Abdullah ibn Muslim al-Qa'nabi, and therefore the old print is still the preferred print of this kitab. And it's also, you know, remember yesterday I told you about Abu Usama Hilali. He gathered and he merged all the different riwayat. So this here is also one of the riwayat that he merged. And like I explained, that it's not the ideal. The next important narrator is Yahya ibn Yahya ibn Bukair al-Tamimi. So he must not be confused with Yahya ibn Yahya al-Laythi. Both of them, the names are the same, Yahya, and the father's names are also the same. So Yahya ibn Yahya. In Sahih Muslim, you're going to see Imam Muslim rahimahullah continuously saying Yahya ibn Yahya. So you must know that he's referring to this person, Yahya ibn Yahya ibn Bukair. Both these Yahyas were from different parts of the world. Yahya ibn Yahya al-Laythi is from the west. Yahya ibn Yahya al-Tamimi is from the east. And Yahya ibn Yahya al-Tamimi, this Yahya, is much more senior compared to the Yahya whose riwayah we are going to be doing. And to create the distinction, other scholars, they attributed him directly to his grandfather. So they would say Yahya ibn Bukair. So if you see Yahya ibn Bukair, then it also refers to Yahya ibn Bukair. So he was born in the year 153 Hijri or 154 Hijri. كان مولد ابن بكير سنة 4 وقيل سنة 53 و100. This is in إتحاف السالك. He was a very great muhaddith. He narrated a lot, but one speciality of his is that he would take extra caution when he narrated hadith, that people even began to call him shakkak. كان من ورعه يشك في الحديث كثيرا حتى سموه الشكاك, the person who doubts a lot. And besides being such a great muhaddith, he also excelled in fiqh. And if you are paying attention yesterday in the beginning, you will know why this point is so important. So وَلَهُ حَظٌّ مِّنَ الْفِقْهِ وَكَانَ ثِقَةً مَأْمُونًا. And it's also mentioned that وَثَّقَهُ جَمَاعَةٌ وَمَنْ لَمْ يُوَثِّقْهُ لَمْ يَقِفْ عَلَى مَنَاقِبِهِ. So Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, he does narrate from him, but although it's very little. However, Imam Muslim rahimahullah, he relies heavily on him when quoting from Imam Malik rahimahullah. So Imam Muslim rahimahullah, he narrates from him like 600 times in his Sahih. Can you imagine how much Imam Muslim rahimahullah narrates from him? Alama ibn Abdul Barr rahimahullah, he mentioned that وروى عنه البخاري ومسلم بن الحجاج ولم يروي مسلم الموطأ إلا عنه. So there's two things. One is general riwayat from Imam Malik. You know, Imam Malik rahimahullah, he narrated lots also. He didn't only narrate the Muwatta, he also narrated other riwayat. So the other riwayat, Imam Muslim narrated from other students of Imam Malik. But very specifically the Muwatta, Imam Muslim rahimahullah narrated the Muwatta from Yahya ibn Yahya ibn Bukair. And it is said that he went through the Muwatta 14 times with Imam Malik rahimahullah. So Nasir al-Din al-Dimashqi, he narrated via Baqi ibn Makhlad أنه سمع من مالك 15 مرة وفي رواية 14 مرة, that 14 times he heard the Muwatta from Imam Malik rahimahullah. And remember we said that it was a very great privilege when Imam Malik would actually read وأن بعضها بقراءة مالك. So he was also privileged that Imam Malik rahimahullah actually also read. And then Nasiruddin al-Dimashqi also quotes one report where it's mentioned that he heard the Muwatta 17 times from Imam Malik rahimahullah. So this transmission of the Muwatta, it was published under the title of Muwatta al-Imam al-Mahdi. It was published by the government of Algeria in the year 1905, so more than 115 years ago. And it is famously known as the Matba'a Fontana print. If you hear people saying the Matba'a Fontana print, then they're referring to this print that was published by the Algerian government. And to get the hard copy of it is extremely difficult. The prints are extremely rare, but fortunately they can be downloaded for free from the internet. And then after that, recently Sheikh Bashar Awad and Sheikh Muhammad Ali Al-Azhari, they also edited this transmission, and it is printed by Darul Gharbul Islami. And it's also in the collection of Abu Usama Al-Hilali. As for the unique narrations that he have, which the other transmitters of the Muwatta did not transmit, one example is he narrates Malik an Abdullah ibn Abi Bakr an Amra an Aisha radiyallahu anha anna Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam قال ما زال جبريل يوصيني بالجار حتى ظننت أنه ليورثه. So this here is not in the other prints of the Muwatta. It comes in Muwatta Imam Muhammad. Imam Muhammad rahmallah did transmit it, but the sanad is different. And when the sanad is different, then it's regarded as a different narration. So Imam Muhammad rahmallah narrated it, Malik and Yahya ibn Sa'id and Abi Bakr ibn Hazm and Amra. So from Amra, he's narrating it from Abu Bakr ibn Hazm is transmitting it from Amra, and then from Aisha radiyallahu anha. When you go through this copy of the Muwatta, it's very similar to that of Yahya ibn Yahya al-Laythi, and therefore that argument of the Orientalists that we quoted yesterday, it has even until now it still has no merit. As for his date of demise, he passed away on the 18th of Safar in the year 231 or 232. توفي يوم السبت ل18 خلت من صفر سنة 1 وقيل سنة 32 و200. Then the next narrator of the Muwatta is Qutaybah ibn Sa'id. So it is transmitted that he was born in the year, rather he himself mentioned the year in which he was born. He said, Wulidtu sanata 50 wa mi'a. I was born in the year 150 Hijri. But other reports suggest that he was born in the year 148 Hijri. وقال غيره ولد سنة 48 و100 ببلخ. So he is a teacher of many senior scholars, for example, Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, Abu Bakr ibn Abi Shayba, and also the authors of the Sihah Sitta. Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, he narrates from Qutaybah ibn Sa'id. Probably you must be even knowing the name because you heard it so frequently when you are reading the Asanid of Bukhari. So and also Sahih Muslim. So Imam Bukhari narrates from him 180 times, and Imam Muslim rahimahullah narrates from him like over 500 times. So you can see what trust they had in him. But unfortunately, we do not know anything about his copy of the Muwatta. It's not in print, and neither are the manuscripts found in any of the libraries or museums around the world. Then the next narrator of the Muwatta is Suwaid ibn Sa'id. So he's also another popular student of Imam Malik rahimahullah. Imam Muslim rahimahullah, he narrates from him 53 times in his Sahih. And there are many scholars who praised him. For example, it's mentioned Abdullah ibn Ahmad, he said that I showed my father his narrations and I asked my father, can I narrate from him? So my father said, yes, you can narrate from him. اكتبها كلها فإنه صالح أو قال ثقة. So he said that he is صالح or he is ثقة. Likewise, Imam Maimuni, he narrates from Imam Ahmad rahimahullah that he said, ما علمت إلا خيرا. And Imam Baghawi rahimahullah, he said, كان من الحفاظ. However, besides these praises, other scholars, they had objections on him. So for example, Abu Zur'a rahimahullah, he said that once I told, or rather he says, we told Yahya ibn Ma'in that Suwaid, he's narrating this narration, they quoted the sanad, that man qala fi dinina bi ra'yihi faqtuluh. So he's narrating this hadith. So can we narrate it from him? So Yahya ibn Ma'in, he said, ينبغي أن يبدأ بسويد فيقتل. That he's narrating about someone who presents his opinion in deen and saying you must kill him. Rather, you should begin with Yahya first, go and kill him. And then on another occasion, Yahya ibn Ma'in said, huwa halalud dam. So can you imagine what kind of criticism? He's saying that you can go kill him is halalud dam. Likewise, Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, he explains, he said, كان قد عمي فيلقن ما ليس من حديثهم. That he became blind, so now he could no more look through his books. So someone else had to read from his books. But what the people would do, they would narrate to him, they would tell him ahadith which were not in his books. So this here now makes him lose his reputation, because then he's going to end up narrating ahadith which he did not hear. And Yaqub ibn Shayba, he also says that Saduqun Mutarab al-Hifz la sima ba'dama amiya. So if he only started to narrate incorrectly after he lost his eyesight, then the principle is that you can accept the narrations before he lost his eyesight. And you only exercise caution on what he narrated after losing his eyesight. So Abu Zur'a, he used to also have bad words about him. So then Barza'i says that I asked him, فَأَيْشْ حَالُهُ, that what's his condition? So then Abu Zur'a said that whatever he narrated before he lost his eyesight, then those are all authentic. And then he says that فَأَمَّا إِذَا حَدَّثَ مِنْ حِفْظِهِ فَلَا, even if he's narrating from his own memory, then too you cannot accept it. So now this is not the place to discuss all the details about him. For now, you can just understand that Imam Muslim rahimahullah narrated 53 times from him, and Alama Zahabi rahimahullah described him as al-Imam al-Muhaddith al-Saduq, Shaykh al-Muhaddithin. And likewise, Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, he concluded his whole discussion about him, and he said that Saduqun fi nafsihi illa annahu amiya fasara yatalaqan ma laysa min hadithihi. And thereafter he says فَأَفْحَشَ fi Ibn Ma'in al-Qawl, that Ibn Ma'in, like, really went to the extremes. Imagine saying that you can go and kill the person. Nevertheless, the reason why I mentioned about him is because his Muwatta is printed in Abdul Majid al-Turki. He edited it, and it's also, you can download it for free on the internet. And likewise, it's also in the collection of prints of Abu Osama al-Hilali. He lived for exactly 100 years. So he was born in the year 140 Hijri, and he passed away in the year 240 Hijri. Imam Bukhari rahmallah said, Mata Suwaid yawm al-Fitr, sana 40 wa 200, that he passed away on the day of Eid al-Fitr, immediately after the month of Ramadan in the year 240 Hijri. And Alama Baghawi rahmallah said, Balagha mi'ata sana, he lived for exactly 100 years. The next narrator is Abu Mus'ab al-Zuhri. So his name is Ahmad ibn Abi Bakr, and he was from the progeny of Abdurrahman ibn Auf. So he was also born in the year 150 Hijri. Wulida sana 50 wa 100. You can see there were quite a few students of Imam Malik rahimahullah who were born on this year. Because to replace one person like Imam Abu Hanifa who passed away in the year 150, Allah Ta'ala had to give numerous people, numerous great muhaddithin and fuqaha to the ummah. So that is why so he was also born in the year 150 Hijri. And Alama Zahabi rahimahullah mentions regarding him, Al-Imam al-Thiqah, Shaykh Dar al-Hijrah. So he's very reliable, and he was the Shaykh of Medina Munawwara. And he mentions his full name, and thereafter he says Al-Faqih Qadi al-Madina. He was a great faqih also, and he became the supreme judge in Medina. And he was a faqih. How did he become? Where did he learn his fiqh? وَلَازَمَ مَالِكَ بْنَ أَنَسْ وَتَفَقَّهَ بِهِ. He stayed very close to Imam Malik rahimahullah, and he got his fiqh directly. He done his iftah course, in our words to put it. He done his iftah course directly under Imam Malik rahimahullah. What that he also heard and he perfected the Muwatta. So one is just hearing the Muwatta. But Al-Madhabi says, وَسَمِعَ مِنْهُ الْمُوَطَّى وَأَتْقَنَهُ عَنْهُ. He perfected the Muwatta. So all the authors of the Sihah Sitta, they narrate from him. It's only Imam Nasa'i, he narrates from another person who narrates from him. But Imam Bukhari, Imam Muslim, Imam Abu Dawud, and Imam Tirmidhi, and Imam Ibn Majah, they narrate from him directly. When you go through his transmission, it's very similar to that of Yahya ibn Yahya. There are minor differences in the chapter order and in some wording, but otherwise you can make out that it's the same book that they are transmitting. So therefore, that claim of the Orientalists, it falls away. So many transmitters we're already discussing, still not one we can find that it contradicts or it's like totally different. All you can see that you can understand that it's the same book. And he's also from the last people who narrated the Muwatta from Imam Malik rahimahullah. So Ibn Hazm, he says, Akhir Shay, that the last to narrate from Imam Malik rahimahullah is Muwatta Abi Mus'ab wa Muwatta Ahmad ibn Ismail al-Sahmi. And thereafter he says that وَفِي هَذَيْنِ الْمُوَطَّئِينَ نَحْوٌ مِنْ مِئَةَ حَدِيث زَائِدَةً. And then he says وَهُمَا آخِرْ مَا رَوَى عَنْ Malik. They were the last who narrated from Imam Malik rahimahullah. He passed away in the year 241 Hijri. Mata Abu Mus'ab sana 41 wa 200. This is in Al-Taqa, page 112. Others felt that he passed away 1 year later in Siyar A'lam an-Nubala, volume 11, page 438. قال الزبير بن بكار مات في شهر رمضان سنة 42 و200. So he passed away in the month of Ramadan in the year 242. And his transmission is also printed. There are quite a few prints. So you get first the Darut Ta'asil print. Likewise, you have the Muassasa Risala print with the Tahqiq of Bashar Awad. And it's also included in the collection of prints of Abu Usama al-Hilali. The next transmitter of the Muwatta is Abu Hudhafa. So Abu Hudhafa, Ahmad ibn Ismail, he's the last person to pass away from all of those who heard the Muwatta. So he passed away in the year 259. So for context, you can understand that it's 3 years after Imam Bukhari. Imam Bukhari was born 15 years after Imam Malik was even after Imam Malik passed away, yet Imam Bukhari passed away before him. So Alama Dhahabi rahimahullah said, wa akhir ashabi mautan rawi al-Muwatta Abu Hudhafa Ahmad ibn Ismail al-Sahmi. He's saying that he's the last person, the last transmitter to pass away who transmitted the Muwatta is Abu Hudhafa Ahmad ibn Ismail al-Sahmi. Asha ba'da Malik 80 aman. He lived for a full 80 years after Imam Malik rahimahullah. Just like a whole lifetime, more than a whole lifetime after Imam Malik rahimahullah passed away. And under his entry, Alama Dhahabi rahimahullah said, Abu Hudhafa al-Imam al-Muhaddith al-Faqih al-Mu'ammar. Abu Hudhafa Ahmad ibn Ismail ibn Muhammad. And he mentions that حدث عن Malik ibn Anas al-Muwatta فكان خاتمة من روى عن Malik. He was the last person to narrate from Imam Malik. Unfortunately, his transmission is not printed. Khairuddin al-Zarkali, he mentions in Al-A'lam on page 197 of volume 1, اطلعت على تصوير الجزء الثاني من الحج من موطأ بمصعب وهو من مخطوطات جامع القيروان. So if you go to Jami' al-Qayrawan, you can go there, you can see the manuscripts. Now we come to the main narrator. So after discussing of all the narrators and transmitters from Imam Malik, we now discuss the narrator, inshallah, whose transmission we will be doing. And that is Yahya ibn Yahya al-Laythi. So if you are sleeping until now please wake up. Now it's the time to wake up because you have to know on whose transmission we are going to be studying. So Alama Dhahabi rahimahullah, he explains about him saying Yahya ibn Kathir ibn Waslas ibn Shamlal ibn Manghaya al-Imam al-Kabir Faqih al-Andalus Abu Muhammad al-Laythi al-Barbari al-Masmudi al-Andalusi al-Qurtubi. And he explains about him وكان كبير الشأن وافر الجلالة عظيم الهيبة نال من الرئاسة والحرمة ما لم يبلغه أحد. These are all important titles, you know, in when you check in the books on Asma ur-Rijal and narrators, or every additional title that's given, or every additional word that's spoken in praise, it has a lot of merit. It's not like, you know, in the Darul Ulums, They say you must learn a lot on the titles, because generally the ustads, they always ask in the exam papers to write about the author. So then you can go on. هو الإمام الكبير العلامة المحقق المدقق المعمق الصالح التقي. You can just go on with titles, write every possible title that comes to your mind, so that the title will feel, the teacher will feel, mashallah, you wrote so much about the author. So it's not like that. It wasn't just writing titles to make the book large. Rather, each title is valuable. And this here is a topic in Ulum al-Hadith. Nevertheless, you can see Alama Dhahabi rahmallah is very lavish in his praise for Yahya ibn Yahya. So Yahya ibn Yahya, he was born in the year 152 Hijri. Mawlidu fi sana 52 wa 100. Now he's called Yahya ibn Yahya al-Laythi. So Alama Dhahabi rahmallah, he explains why he's called al-Laythi. So he writes in his Tarikh al-Islam, دخل جده أبو عيسى كثير بن وسلاس إلى الأندلس وتولى بني ليث. That his grandfather, he came to Andalus, and then he stayed amongst the people of the Banu Layth, and that is how they got this title al-Laythi. They were attributed to them. So basically, Imam Yahya's grandfather, whose name is Kathir, and his great-grandfather, whose name is Waslas, they both went to Andalus with the army of Tariq ibn Ziyad, and that is how Imam Yahya ibn Yahya ended up there, residing in Andalus. So initially, when you are still young, Yahya ibn Yahya, he first recited the Muwatta to a local scholar, Ziyad ibn Abdurrahman al-Lakhmi. So remember the name Ziyad ibn Abdurrahman al-Lakhmi, and he was also famously known as Shubtun. So Abdullah ibn Faradi, he wrote, وروى يحيى بن يحيى عن زياد بن عبد الرحمن الموطأ قبل أن يرحل إلى مالك. So he first heard the Muwatta in Andalus from one of the students of Imam Malik rahimahullah, Ziyad ibn Abdul Rahman. Now this teacher of his, Ziyad ibn Abdul Rahman, Yahya himself explains the status of this teacher. He says that Ziyad أول من أدخل الأندلس علم السنن ومسائل الحلال والحرام ووجوه الفقه والأحكام. That he was the first person to bring fiqh to Andalus. And Alama Dhahabi rahimahullah, he writes under his entry, under the entry of Ziyad ibn Abdul Rahman in Tarikh al-Islam, he says, Al-Faqih al-Andalusi, Al-Shubtun al-Lakhmi, عالم الأندلس وتلميذ مالك كان أول من أدخل مذهب مالك إلى الجزيرة الأندلسية. That he was the first one to bring the Maliki madhab to Andalus. And then you know the Maliki madhab continued in Andalus, and in today's times not in Spain but in the neighboring countries in Morocco, Mauritania, Tunisia, Algeria, all those countries, they still on the Maliki madhab. So over 1,000 years they still now on the Maliki madhab. وقبل ذلك كانوا يتفقهون للأوزاع وغيره. Before that, they would learn the fiqh of Imam Auza'i rahimahullah. So basically, if it wasn't for Ziyad ibn Abdul Rahman, in all his countries, they would be till today probably following the fiqh of Imam Auza'i rahimahullah. Probably you would have had the madhab of Imam Auza'i still surviving. However, because Ziyad ibn Abdul Rahman, he came there and he started to teach everybody the madhab of Imam Malik rahimahullah, and this is how they all became Malikis. Now this teacher of Imam Yahya ibn Yahya, he's the one who had the greatest impact on the life of Yahya. You know, sometimes you get a teacher who has like a really great impact on your life. So Ziyad ibn Abdul Rahman is the one who had this impact on the life of Yahya. So Razi, he relates, he says, كان سبب طلب يحيى بن يحيى العلم أنه كان يمر بزياد وهو يقول على أصحابه فيميل إليه ويقعد عنده فأعجبه ذلك زيادا. Yahya ibn Yahya, he would pass by the gatherings and he would, like, so to say, eavesdrop. And Ziyad would notice this. So then وأدناه يوما, one day he called him close and he said, يا بني إن كنت عازما على التعلم فخذ من شعرك. If you really want to learn, then firstly go cut your hair, go shave off all your hair, وأصلح زيك, and wear proper clothes, because he used to wear very simple clothes, like, you know, like servants' clothes. Again, you remember we spoke about Imam Malik rahimahullah wearing separate garments when you are a student. So you can see again, this teacher is telling him in Andalus that you have to wear a dignified clothes when you're coming to learn. وكان يرى الخدمة وفعل ذلك بحين فسر به زياد واجتهد بتعليمه حتى برع تلاميذه. So Ziyad then began to keep him very close, and he dedicated lots of time to him until Yahya ibn Yahya surpassed all the other students. Besides, Ziyad ibn Abdul Rahman, Alama Dhahabi rahimahullah mentions that Yahya ibn Yahya also heard from a few other scholars in Andalus. So he says, سمع أولا من الفقيه زياد ibn Abdul Rahman Shubtun ويحيى ibn Mudar وطائفة. So he also heard from Yahya ibn Mudar. So basically he started from a few local scholars. Now Ziyad ibn Abdul Rahman, he is also the one who actually advised Yahya ibn Yahya to travel to Medina. So although he related the entire Muwatta to Yahya ibn Yahya, but he thought that the person who I got the Muwatta from, he's still alive. And this year is now one of my best students. So the student should go and get it directly from my teacher. وروى عنه يحيى بن يحيى الموطأ وسماعه من مالك قبل رحلته من الأندلس فأشار عليه زياد بالرحيل إلى مالك ما دام حيا وأخذه عنه ففعله. He told him that you must now travel to Medina and go and hear the Muwatta directly from Imam Malik rahimahullah. There are differences of opinion on the date of demise of Ziyad ibn Abdul Rahman. Some say that he passed away in the year 193. Ibn Yunus, he mentions Tufiya Sana 93 ومئة. And others, they say that Mata Sana 99 ومئة, that he passed away in the year 199 Hijri. And other historians, they take it into the next century. They say he passed away as late as 204 Hijri. But the idea that we get is that he passed away a minimum of 15 years after Imam Malik rahimahullah. So that from this we learn that although Imam Yahya ibn Yahya went and learned from Imam Malik, when he returned back to Andalus, his main teacher was still alive. So keep this point in mind, because we'll explain what happened to Yahya ibn Yahya when he returned to Andalus. So just know that his greatest teacher, the teacher who had a huge impact on his life, and the teacher who actually advised him to travel to Medina, he was still alive after Yahya ibn Yahya came back from Medina to Andalus. Now, Qadi Iyad, he mentioned that Yahya ibn Yahya, he traveled to Medina when he was 28 years old. So he says, ثم رحل وهو ابن 28 سنة. So this is in ترتيب المدارك. So at the age of 28, Yahya traveled to Medina to read the Muwatta directly to Imam Malik rahimahullah. Now, so keep this point in mind, write it down that he was 28 years old. Then Qadi Iyad, he very clearly mentions the year in which he met Imam Malik rahimahullah. He says, وكان لقاؤه لمالك سنة 79. السنة التي مات فيها مالك. That he went to Imam Malik rahimahullah in the year 179. And that was the very year in which Imam Malik rahimahullah passed away. So this year is being mentioned by who? By Qadi Iyad. So remember, Qadi Iyad is saying that he met him in the year 179. And remember that Qadi Iyad is saying that he was 28 years old. There's another scholar, Abu Hayyan al-Qurtubi, in Al-Muqtabis min Anba'i al-Andalus on page 24. He also mentions وَرَحِلَ إِلَى مَالِكٍ وَهُوَ يَوْمَئِذٍ ابن 28 سنة. That he was 28 years old. Now here I want to pick your brains a little bit, although it's becoming so late. So I told you that it's a responsibility that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me, that I have to teach you. So it's an amana that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put on my shoulders. But the amount of information that I convey to you in the month of Ramadan will be very minimal. So rather, I try to reshape your mind so that inshallah after Ramadan, you can have a sharper mind compared to what you had before the month of Ramadan. So that means after you leave the durus at the end of Ramadan, your thinking will no more be the same like how it was before the month of Ramadan. Because if you are giving me so many of your valuable hours, so much of your valuable time, then I have to try to have the best impact on you. So you see, I always tell the students this, that my objective of teaching is not just to come and give a lecture and then go away and go relax, fulfill my responsibility. Rather, my goal is to sharpen your mind and also to alter your temperament and to change your whole outlook to ilm. So Sheikh Awama, he always speaks about ta'ammuq. So I want to teach you that you make tahqiq and tadqiq, but you also ultimately have to get ta'ammuq. So now you would have noticed something. And the thing that you may have noticed is that we said Yahya ibn Yahya was born in 152. So if you wrote that down, you wrote he was born in 152. Now they're saying that he left Andalus when he was 28 years old. So he left Spain when he was 28 years old. So what's 152 plus 28? So quickly take out your calculator. You know, such a difficult maths I'm giving you now. 152 plus 28. So you can work it out. You can check 152 plus 28 equals to how much? To 180. So if they're saying he left Andalus when he was 28 years old, what is that going to mean? That he left Andalus after Imam Malik rahimahullah already passed away. Because when did Imam Malik rahimahullah pass away? In the year 179. So now will the statement be correct? There's definitely going to be an inconsistency, isn't it? Because they're saying that he was born in 152. And in the same breath, they are saying that he traveled to Medina when he was 28. So that means he only left Andalus after Imam Malik rahimahullah already passed away. Now you add to that the journeys in those times. You know, it wasn't just a 4-hour flight from Spain to Medina Munawwara. It would take lots of months, a good portion of the year to traverse that distance. So now there were two routes they could have taken. They could have either taken the route via Europe, coming down like that to Medina Munawwara, or they could have came via Africa. So if they came through Africa to Medina Munawwara, then it would be 6,000 kilometers journey. And if they came via Europe, it would be 6,300 kilometers. But it's far-fetched that they would have traveled through Europe, because you know that Constantinople, etc., it wasn't conquered at that time. But let us now try to find out how long this journey would have been. So now in the books of fiqh, we get the safar of a musafir, isn't the distance which a person has to travel to become a musafir. It is a 3-day journey. So we calculate that in 3 days that they would travel 78 kilometers. So that means that they would travel around 26 kilometers a day. Because in 3 days, if they travel 78 kilometers, they're traveling 26 kilometers the first day, 26 kilometers the second day, and 26 kilometers the third day. So let us be generous and say, okay, maybe he travels 30 kilometers a day. Or let us even be more generous and let us assume that he maybe had a super fast horse. So maybe he done 40 kilometers in 1 day. So taking 40 kilometers a day and giving him the benefit that he traveled through Africa, it would mean that it was a 150-day journey. So if you go strictly by 26 kilometers a day, and then you assume, then it would become like a 250-day journey. So it's like if you work out 6,000 kilometers at 26 kilometers a day, not 250, 230 days journey. So 230 days to travel from Andalus to Medina Munawwara. Now let's assume, if you check on Google Maps now, if you have to take a walk from Spain to Medina. So if you take a walk, so they're showing that it's 1,409 hours. So let's assume they walked for 6 hours a day, because you know in that scorching heat, you know how hot it gets in North Africa. So maybe 6 hours a day they walked. So 1,409 divided by 6, it will equal to 235 days. So 255 5 days journey. Or let's say maybe they went in winter, so maybe they could walk for 8 hours a day. So 1,409 divided by 8, it means that it would have taken them 176 days. So that's still almost 6 months. So the point that I'm trying to show is that it took lots of time to travel from Andalus to Medina. Now take into consideration that Imam Malik rahimahullah, he passed away in the beginning of 179 Hijri. Isn't we mentioned that he passed away in Rabi' al-Awwal, you remember? Ibn Abdul Barr rahimahullah, he quoted his sanad which goes to Ismail ibn Abi Uwais. He said, Ishtaka Malik ibn Anas fasa'altu ba'da ahlina amma qala 'inda al-maut. And thereafter he says, وَتُوَفِّيَ صَبِيحَةَ 14 من شهر ربيع الأول سنة 79 و100. He passed away in 170. He passed away in Rabi' al-Awwal. So that would mean that the latest Yahya ibn Yahya could have left Spain is in the year 178 Hijri, isn't? Because if he needs to meet Imam Malik, he's traveling for 6 months. If he's only going to start his journey in 179, then in the third month of the year, 2 months, 2.5 months, in less than 2.5 months, Imam Malik rahimahullah already passed away. So he would have to start his journey at least in the year 178. So in the year 178 Hijri, how old was he? If he was born in 152, then in 178 Hijri, how old would he be? He would be only 26 years old. So either his date of birth is given incorrectly, or the date of leaving Andalus is given incorrectly. Unless maybe the Muslims, they had some secret aeroplanes and jets, and maybe he quickly took a flight and he flew from Andalus to Medina. But otherwise, he would have to take the 6-month journey to travel from Andalus to Medina. So that's just some food for thought from you to sharpen your minds and to teach you how to read books that you remember I told you in the first lesson that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us intellect. So even though it's mentioned in the classical books that he was 28 years old, but we will have to say that he left when he was 25 or 26 years old. And then this here also impacts whether Yahya ibn Yahya heard from others before going to Imam Malik rahimahullah, or whether he went straight from Andalus to Medina. So we already said that on minimum the journey is 150 days. Now if you're saying that en route to Medina he stopped and he heard from others, then it makes the journey even longer. So whether you're saying that he first went to Mecca, so Mecca is even further from Andalus. So that's going to create a bigger problem. That he couldn't have then left in the year 179. He would have to leave in the year 178 when he was only 26 years old, or even before that. So keep these points in mind. Like I said, I'm not a historian and I didn't read this in any book. I'm just throwing out some thoughts that comes to my mind when I read, and you can analyze it. And probably you might find some other method of making a tadbiq between all of this, then you can share with me. And in that way, you can sharpen my mind. For now, let's assume that he left Andalus and he went first to Medina Munawwara. So in Medina Munawwara, Yahya ibn Yahya, he read the entire Muwatta to Imam Malik rahimahullah. But he didn't read the chapter of i'tikaf. So he read the entire Muwatta besides the chapter of i'tikaf. So Abu Hayyan al-Qurtubi, he writes in al-Muqtabas min Anba' al-Andalus that سمع فيها لأول نشأة من زياد ibn Abd al-Rahman al-Muwatta. The first time he heard the Muwatta in Andalus from Ziyad ibn Abd al-Rahman. ثم رحل إلى المشرق, because coming from the west, so he's now coming towards the east. فسمع الموطأ من مالك بن أنس غير أبواب من الاعتكاف. But it's not confirmed that he didn't hear it. شك في سماعها من Malik. That he was doubtful whether he also read the chapter of i'tikaf to Imam Malik rahimahullah. فأثبت روايته فيها عن زياد عنه. So therefore, this one chapter he narrates from Ziyad from Imam Malik, and the remaining of the Muwatta he narrates directly from Imam Malik rahimahullah. So Ibn al-Faradi, he also mentions that in Tarikh al-Ulama wal-Ruwah lil-Ilm bil-Andalus in volume 1 on page 183, ثم رحل فأدرك مالكا, that he went and he met Imam Malik and he narrated from him the entire Muwatta إلا أبوابا في كتاب الاعتكاف شك في سماعها من مالك فأبقى روايته فيها عن زياد عن مالك. Now, Yahya, he traveled twice from Spain to Medina. So this was the first trip that he traveled to Medina. So the first trip that he traveled to Medina, it was during the last few months of Imam Malik rahmahullah's lifetime. And this is when Imam Malik rahmahullah was in his final illness. Now, again, we have to pass comments. So it seems as if Alama Dhahabi rahimahullah, he assumed that this was Yahya ibn Yahya's second trip to Medina. So therefore, in Tarikh al-Islam, in volume 17 on page 415, he writes, ثم رجع إلى المدينة يسمع ذلك من مالك. So what's the meaning of ثم رجع? ثم comes for tarahi. Raja means return. You can only return to somewhere when you came there. If you never ever came to South Africa, you're coming here your first trip. Will you say I'm returning to South Africa? Or will you say I'm going to South Africa? So in the same way, he's going to Medina. The first time you say he's going to Medina. If he went to Medina and he's going the second time, now you can say رجع إلى المدينة. So what Alama Dhahabi rahmallah is saying, ثم رجع إلى المدينة يسمع ذلك من مالك فوجده عليلا فأقام بالمدينة إلى أن توفي مالك رحمه الله وحضر جنازته. So this is what Alama Dhahabi rahmallah is assuming. Likewise in Siyar Alam al-Nubala, he also mentioned volume 10 page 520, ورجع إلى المدينة ليزداد من مالك. So you can only increase something when you already got. If you don't have no gold, first time in your life you go and buy one Kruger or you go buy gold, and you say I'm increasing my gold, or you say I got gold. And you have to first have gold, then you can increase. So this means that he went to Medina, and now the second time he's going to Medina. فَوَجَدَهُ فِي مَرَضِ الْمَوْتِ. Now again, we cannot just accept this just because Alama Dhahabi rahimahullah wrote it. So I told you we have to have a sharp mind. So we find that historians mentioned that this year was Imam Yahya's first trip to Medina. And the second trip to Medina was after Imam Malik rahimahullah passed away. So what happened is Imam Yahya, he studied under Imam Malik rahimahullah, and then he went back to Andalus. Then his father passed away. And when his father passed away, then the inheritance that he got, So they weren't going to use the inheritance now for a lavish lifestyle. Rather, he used it again for ilm. So he used that money to travel back to Medina Munawwara. But this time, Imam Malik rahmallah passed away. So this time, what was his objective? He needed to study under the closest students of Imam Malik. Because you have people who are studying decades under Imam Malik rahmallah. But Yahya ibn Yahya, he only came there for a few months. So now he wants to get the ilm of Imam Malik rahimahullah. He can't get it over Zoom. He needs to travel all the way back to Medina Munawwara. So he's using this inheritance and he's now going back to Medina. So Ibn al-Harith rahimahullah, he very clearly mentions that Imam Yahya ibn Yahya, he heard from Imam Malik on the first trip. So he says, إنه كانت ليحيى رحلتان من أندلس سمع في أولهما من مالك. So on the first trip he heard from Imam Malik rahimahullah. So that's why you can see that what Allama Dhahabi rahimahullah mentioned, that will not be correct. And he said, وَقَدْ فِي الْأُخْرَى عَلَى ابْنِ قَاسِمْ وَبِهِ تَفَقَّهَ. So the first trip was right towards the end of Imam Malik rahimahullah's lifetime. Like we said, that he stayed with Imam Malik rahimahullah until Imam Malik rahimahullah passed away. He was also then present in the janazah of Imam Malik rahimahullah. So it was just a few months, very, very short period. Now compare that with those who be saying they spent 31 years and 20 years. They spent decades with Imam Malik. But Yahya ibn Yahya, not even one full year, not even half a year, just a few months. But despite his short time with Imam Malik, he became a carbon copy of Imam Malik rahimahullah. So Allama Dhahabi rahimahullah, he says in Tarikh al-Islam, وَكَانَ ثِقَةً عَاقِلًا. And thereafter he says, يُشْبِهُ فِي سَمْتِهِ بِسَمْتِ Malik. That his actions, his temperament became just like that of his teacher. And you remember in the second lesson, you can go there and get that quotation where we told you that he took it from Imam Malik because this year Imam Malik took it from his teachers, who then took it from the Sahaba, who took it from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Imam Yahya's student Ibn al-Baz, probably if we get time, inshallah, we'll speak about him tomorrow. He said, Wallah alladhi la ilaha illahu, ma ra'aytu awqara min Yahya ibn Yahya, ma ra'aytu yabtaq. I didn't ever see him spitting in public. ولا يسأل في مجلسه, he would not cough in his majalis. ولا يتحرك عن حاله, he would sit in a very dignified manner. He wouldn't be fidgeting and moving around. وكان أخذ بزي مالك وسمته, and he took from Imam Malik rahimahullah. He got his temperament from Imam Malik rahimahullah. And this goes back to the point that I told you a few days back, that we need to learn akhlaq from our asatidah. So when we go to study, if you're going to Darul Ulum, don't only make it your objective that I'm going there to get ilm. Rather make it that we are going there to also learn from the sifat of our asatidah. You know, in the work of tabligh, they say when you go, it's plain thing, that when you go out in Jamaat and you learn that that they're hearty, he can also teach you some good qualities. He can teach you Mehman Nawazi, he can teach you how to be, lots of good qualities they have. So imagine now a person whose life is dedicated to teaching Qala Allah, Qala Rasul day and night. So obviously we learn our akhlaq from our asatidah. And nevertheless, Imam Malik rahimahullah, so he only noticed Yahya ibn Yahya for a few months, yet he called him aqil. And you know that's the reason that Imam Malik rahimahullah called him aqil. That kana Malik yu'jibu simtu Yahya wa aqil. That Imam Malik rahimahullah, he became fascinated and astonished at this the temperament, the conduct of Imam Yahya, and his maturity and his intellect. So it's mentioned that one day they were all sitting with Imam Malik rahimahullah, and a person came and he said, قَدْ حَضَرَ الْفِيلِ, that is an elephant that came. فَخَرَجَ أَصْحَابُ مَالِكْ كُلُّهُمْ لِيَنْظُرُوا إِلَيْهِ. Are they all reading in Surah Fil, أَلَمْ تَرَ كَيْفَ فَعَلَ رَبُّكَ بِأَصْحَابِ الْفِيلِ? But now they don't know what's an elephant. So now what's this kind of animal that wanted to destroy the Kaaba? So they all are interested. So they all left the majlis of Imam Malik to go and look, what's the feel, what's an elephant? Because there was no elephants in Arabia, and they didn't have Google images, so they couldn't check. So now they all left the majlis of Imam Malik rahimahullah. But Yahya said there. So Imam Malik rahimahullah asked him, Lima lam takhruj fatarahu? Everyone else left the majlis and they all gone to see. Why didn't you go? Now the main point here is the laysa bi ard al-Andalus. So the reason why I say this here is the important point. There were no elephants also in Andalus, because you know this incident, it's mentioned in the class 2 books of the madrasa syllabus, the maktab syllabus. So you know how small kids are, they don't have they mention anything. So when this incident was being quoted, one of the ustads, then one child very innocently said that he didn't go see the elephant because he already saw elephants in Spain. So This here is إِذْ لَيْسَ بِأَرْضِ الْأَنْدَلُسِ. There was no elephants in Spain, so he also didn't see any elephants. So then Yahya said, he responded, Imam Malik is asking, لِمَ لَمْ تَخْرُجْ فَتَرَاهُ إِذْ لَيْسَ بِأَرْضِ الْأَنْدَلُسِ. So Yahya responded, إِنَّمَا جِئْتُ مِنْ بَلَدِي لِأَنْظُرَ إِلَيْكَ وَتَعَلَّمْ مِنْ هَدْيِكَ وَعِلْمِكَ. I left Spain to come here and to learn from you. And look at also what he said, وَتَعَلَّمْ مِنْ هَدْيِكَ وَعِلْمِكَ. First, I came to learn from your akhlaq. Then I came to learn, especially if you're Shafi'i, and you know that they say wow comes for tartib. For Hanafis is mutlaq jama. Nevertheless, min hajika wa ilmik, la ila an anzura ila al-fil. I didn't come here to come look at elephants. So if any of you, if Allah Ta'ala bless you with the opportunity of coming to study in South Africa, then don't go to Durban for holiday and go to Kruger National Park, because you came to South Africa to benefit from your asatida. So Imam Malik rahimahullah became really surprised and pleased with this answer. And then Imam Malik rahimahullah started to call him al-aqil. Besides Imam Malik rahimahullah, Imam Yahya, he also started to spend time with other scholars. So وسمع بمكة من سفيان بن عيينة وبمصر من al-Laythi ibn Sa'ad وعبد ibn Wahab. That he spent time with Sufyan ibn Uyayna in Mecca. He went to the student of Imam Malik in Egypt, and he also heard from the Mujtahid in Egypt, Layth ibn Sa'ad, and he also heard from Ibn al-Qasim. So it's very clear from this statement that, or rather from this quotation, that he heard from them in different places. That means he traveled, he heard from Layth and Ibn Wahab in Egypt. He didn't hear from them in Medina. So he heard from Ibn Wahab in Egypt. Rather, likewise, he heard from Sufyan ibn Uyayna in Mecca. It wasn't that Sufyan ibn Uyayna was visiting Medina and he heard from him there. And an interesting incident to show his thirst of knowledge. So when he went to Egypt, so now he was a young man, you can imagine if he was 26 years old, and now whatever time he went to Egypt, and he's still not married. So he says that when he came to Egypt, he was overcome by the need of a man. So now he desired a woman. So he purchased a slave girl. But then after he says that by Allah, I did not even see her face for a single day as long as I remained in Egypt. Why? Because all my time I just went to Ibn al-Qasim. So he had a need, a human need, but still he then forgot about it. This is what the ilm is all about. You even forget about it. So in this way, he then sold a slave girl. When he was in Egypt, he also heard from Ibn Wahab. وَسَمِعَ مِنْ Abdullah ibn Wahab. But a very important thing, what did he hear from Abdullah ibn Wahab? Is that he heard the Muwatta. So this is an important statement. And this is the reason why yesterday I spoke so much about Ibn Wahab and tried to prove that Abdullah ibn Wahab was a reliable narrator. So Ibn Wahab is the greatest student of Imam Malik. He's the authority of the Maliki madhab. He spent 31 years in the company of Imam Malik. Imam Malik was very lenient with him. He would let him sleep in the majalis. So Yahya ibn Yahya, he came and he read the Muwatta again to this very close student of Imam Malik, to Ibn Wahab. So now you can also then understand why we are giving preference to this narration, to the transmission of Yahya ibn Yahya. Because otherwise you can say that, look, Ibn Wahab, he heard it 31 times at minimum from Imam Malik rahimahullah. So why didn't we give preference to his Muwatta? Or throughout time, why didn't his Muwatta become very famous, his transmission of the Muwatta? But Yahya ibn Yahya is now for the third time he's getting it. So basically he's benefiting from the 3 decades of Ibn Wahab. He doesn't have the 3 decades with him, but he's benefiting the 3 decades from Ibn Wahab. So he went and he read the Muwatta for the 3rd time. So in case shaitan ever disturbs you and makes you feel that you shouldn't continue with the Muwatta, remember that Imam Ahmad read it so many times too. And likewise, you can see Yahya ibn Yahya, they're reading it multiple times. They know it off by heart and they're reading it multiple times. So that is why Sheikh Awama, he always stresses about this point here, having sabr on a kitab. And not only when you're doing it darsan, even when you're reading a kitab. He said that many times you'll open a kitab and you'll start to read it and then you become bored. It's the qurbani, the sacrifice of ilm is that you have sabr on the kitab. And you continue reading, you suppress your nafs. Your nafs is telling you, no, let me read something more interesting. You suppress your nafs and you continue reading. You find that you're not managing to pay attention. You go put cold water on your face and you continue reading, because probably there's some valuable pearls which are hidden in those pages that you did not read. So Sheikh Awama, not only he mentions it, he puts stress on it, he emphasizes it, that having sabr on a kitab. That if you start something, then you should make sure to completed. In Sira Alam in Nubala, Alama Dhahabi rahimahullah, he mentions that he didn't only go and meet these two students of Imam Malik, so these very two close students of Imam Malik, rather, وَلَازَمَ ابْنَ وَهْبٍ وَابْنَ الْقَاسِمِ, he stayed very close with them. So he might have not got lots of time to spend with Imam Malik rahimahullah, but he spent time with the closest students of Imam Malik rahimahullah. And another point that we learn is that besides just meeting Imam Malik and getting the Maliki fiqh and staying with the students of Imam Malik rahimahullah, there were also other students, that other scholars. So he got the fiqh of Layth ibn Sa'd, and he also met many other scholars. And another point that we're learning, and this is the important point to strengthen my point which I mentioned earlier, that he has to leave when he was 25 or 26 years, even though all the kitabs mentioned that he left when he was 28 years old, is we can clearly see that he met these scholars after he met Imam Malik rahimahullah. So he did not meet them, because how can he make Lazam ibn Wahab wa ibn al-Qasim if he met them before? Maybe if he met them before, it was a very brief meeting, but actual studying with them was after the demise of Imam Malik rahimahullah. So Imam Yahya ibn Yahya, he came to Andalus, he spent a little time with Imam Malik rahimahullah, and then we say he went back to Andalus. So now on this, so it could happen that also that on his trip, because now if you look at the route coming from Andalus to Medina, you have to pass through Cairo. So maybe at that time he must have en route back, he must have met them, and that's the time he might have studied upon them. Or it might have been on a separate trip. When he came the second time, that's the time he stopped at Cairo. So because you don't expect a person, it's also that maybe on the trip when he came on the first trip, that maybe on that trip he went to Mecca, and then he went back to Andalus. So it was on the first trip that he met Sufyan ibn Uyayna. Because you don't expect a person to be traveling for 6 months, coming all the way to Medina Munawwara, and then he does not perform Hajj. In those times, there was no quota system, and there was no regulations, etc. So he could go and perform Hajj. So probably he must have met Sufyan ibn Uyayna also on this first trip. And nevertheless, irrespective, after Yahya ibn Yahya came back to Andalus, he now began to conduct lessons of the Muwatta then. And one quality of his is that because he studied the Maliki madhab, so when he came back, he now became a means of consolidating and spreading the Maliki madhab. We mentioned that his main teacher, Ziyad, he brought the Maliki madhab. But now obviously it takes time. You can't just change everybody's methodology in one day, in a few years even. So he now, so the student of Ziyad, Yahya ibn Yahya, he came and he started to consolidate and make the Maliki madhab form there. وَاشْتَهَرَ مَذْهَبُ مَالِكْ بِيَحْيَى ibn Yahya al-Laythi. This is what Salahuddin al-Safdi mentions in Al-Wafi bil-Wafiyat in volume 18 on page 124. So we mentioned that before, it was they were all following the madhab of Imam Auza'i. And the reason why they were following the madhab of Imam Auza'i rahimahullah is because the Muslim conquerors, they came from Syria. And in those days in Syria, the madhab of Imam Auza'i rahimahullah was practiced there. But nevertheless, so Ziyad ibn Abdurrahman brought the Maliki madhab to Andalus, and Yahya, he strengthened the Maliki madhab in Andalus. And now he started, so that, you remember earlier I told you that he's going to still be alive. Ziyad ibn Abdurrahman is still alive when Yahya returns. So he followed in the footsteps of this illustrious teacher of his. وكان زياد أول من أدخل إلى الأندلس موطأ مالك ثم تلاه يحيى بن يحيى. So he now also started to conduct lessons of the Muwatta, and now students came in the throngs, in the large numbers to listen from him. Al-Madhabi rahimahullah, he mentions in Tarikh al-Islam, روى عنه خلق من علماء الأندلس وانتفعوا به وبعلمه وبفضله ونال من الرئاسة والحرم الوافرة ما لم ينله غيرهم. And besides ilm, you can imagine if Imam Malik rahimahullah called him aqil, then he definitely had great intellect, so he became very well known for his intellect. So Ibn Hayyan al-Qurtubi in al-Muqtabas min Anba' al-Andalus, he says, he quotes from Muhammad ibn Umar, that Faqih al-Andalus, Isa ibn Dinar. The Faqih of Andalus is Isa ibn Dinar. وعالمها Abdul Malik ibn Habib. وعاقلها Yahya ibn Yahya. He was known as the very intellectual person of Andalus. And Isa ibn Dinar was known as the Faqih of Andalus. But after Isa ibn Dinar passed away, then Yahya ibn Yahya also became the leading Mufti. So وقدم إلى الأندلس بعلم كثير فعادت فتي الأندلس بعد عيسى بن دينار إلى رأيه وقوله. That now he became the leading Mufti. In our terms, we say he became the grand Mufti of Andalus. So in this way, Yahya ibn Yahya, he really excelled in fiqh. And that is why Alama Dhahabi rahimahullah describes him as Faqih Ahli al-Andalus. That he is the Faqih of Andalus. To illustrate his faqaha, Qadi Iyad rahimahullah, he mentions that وقع الأمير عبد الرحمن على جارية له في يوم من رمضان ثم ندم. That one day Abdul Rahman, the leader, he had intercourse with his slave girl during the month of Ramadan. So whilst fasting. So now his fast obviously broke. So now he needs to know the ruling that he had intercourse, his fast is broken. What's the ruling? وبعث في يحيى وأصحابه. So he decided, let me ask the Faqih of Andalus. So he decided to ask Yahya. So the minute they asked Yahya, immediately Yahya responded, Yasumul Amir, Akramahullah, Shahrain Mutatabi'ain. That the Amir must keep fast for 2 consecutive months. So now when he said this, all his companions, all his students, they all became like surprised, astonished. But sakat al-qawm, out of respect, they just maintained silence. So falamma kharaju, when the delegates of the king, when they all left, they asked him, they said, how did you just say that he must keep fast for 2 months when you know it comes that he has the choice to feed poor people, to free slaves, but you just stipulated it that he has to fast for 2 months. So now look at his faqaha. He said, لو فتحنا له هذا الباب وتأ كل يوم وأعتقه. He has unlimited wealth. If you're going to say that, okay, you can just free a slave or you just need to feed, he has unlimited wealth. He's not going to feel the pinch of it. Every day he'll have intercourse. Every day he'll break his fast and then he'll just go and free. It won't even have any impact on him. So therefore, his punishment is that he must fast for 2 consecutive months. Then he will feel it and he won't take it to be so lightly. In fiqh, Yahya ibn Yahya, he was a very staunch Maliki. He rigidly followed the Maliki madhab, but there was a very small number of masail where he left the view of Imam Malik. Remember we said that he went and he studied under Layth ibn Sa'd. So كان يفتي برأي مالك لا يدع ذلك إلا في مسائل نذكرها بعد. That he used to give fatwa according to Imam Malik rahmallah, but there are very few masail where he left the Maliki madhab and he gave fatwa according to the madhab of Layth. So in al-Muqtabas, these issues are mentioned. He said, كان يفتي برأي مالك صرفا لا يعدوه إلا في القنوت في الصبح. So قنوت in subh, فإنه تركه لرأي الليث. So Layth ibn Sa'd said, you don't have to make qunut in Fajr Salah. And Imam Malik said, no, you must make qunut. So he left the view of Imam Malik and he practiced upon, he gave fatwa according to the view of Imam Layth. Likewise, وترك يحيى من رأي مالك أيضا الأخذ باليمين مع الشاهد. So you know, normally you have to bring 2 witnesses. But Imam Malik rahmallah said that if you only have 1 witness, then you can simply take an oath. So yeah, again, he left this view to say that you only need 1 witness and you can take an oath. Rather, he said, no, you have to bring 2 witnesses. وأخذ بقول الليث في ترك ذلك وإجاب شهيدين. You must bring 2 witnesses. And likewise, وكان لا يرى بعثة الحكمين عند تشاجر الزوجين. So again, yeah, he left the madhab of Imam Malik. And then another ruling also is that Imam Malik rahimahullah, he was of the view that you can pay your rental based on your produce. So that means if you got all palm trees on the land and now you have to pay the landlord, now maybe this year you had a good harvest, so you pay more. And next year maybe there was drought, maybe you didn't have so much, so you pay less. So yeah, again, he left the Maliki madhab and he practiced upon the madhab of Layth. So basically, this handful of masail, he left the Maliki madhab. Qadi Iyad, he quotes from Ahmad ibn Khalid, where he explains the great impact that Yahya had. He said, لم يعطى أحدا من أهل العلم بالأندلس منذ دخلت الإسلام من الحظوة وعظم القدر وجلالة الذكر ما أعطيه يحيى ibn Yahya. That from the time Islam ended Spain, no one had a great impact like what Yahya ibn Yahya had. And he also explains how the leaders in Spain, so when he just came, so he basically, the pattern of his life with the leaders were very similar to that of Imam Malik. That initially the rulers, they honored him, and then he had some trials with the leaders, and then after the leaders honored him again. That was how it was for Imam Malik, you remember? So, وكان الأمير عبد الرحمن بن الحكم يبجله. We mentioned that how he actually called them when he needed to know the fatwa, he sent people especially to ask him. ولا يرجع عن قوله, would follow his view. ويستشيره في جميع أمره. He would discuss every matter with him. So the leader, every meaning, وفيما يوليه ويعزله, even he's in running the country, every matter he would make a مشورة. What يحيى بن يحيى. فلذلك كثر القضاء في مدته. And وكان يفضل بالعقل. He would actually prefer his intellect over his knowledge. He was a very matured and wise person. But due to his vast knowledge and this wisdom of his and his popularity, so then Abdul Rahman, he now started to pester him that you need to become the supreme judge. But Yahya ibn Yahya, obviously, he doesn't have any desire for worldly positions. So وألح عليه الأمير عبد الرحمن في ولايته القضاء فأبى عليه. He refused, blatantly refused. So now the leader, because now he respects him, so he can't punish him or he can't force him. But now he thought of a trick. So he said, let me just send one minister out and tell him he must go in the masjid and he must announce. So everybody knows he's the minister and he's my representative. Whatever he's going to announce, it's from me. So he must just go and he must announce publicly, هذا قاضيكم, that this here is your qadi, this here is your judge. So Yahya ibn Yahya, in spite of this, that he thought that the people will now pressurize him because he knows that everybody holds him in esteem. Everybody recognizes his great knowledge. So فأبى عليه, again فأبى على الحكم. He still refused that he's not going to become the judge. And then Yahya ibn Yahya, he was one step ahead. So he said, إن المكان الذي أنا فيه أنفع وخير لكم مما تريدون. He said that this place that I am in, my current position, is actually more beneficial to you. Why? إن إذا تظلم الناس من قاض أجلستموني. That currently my position is like in the high court. So maybe if one of the local or one of the regional qadis, judges, if they have to pass a ruling, an oppressive ruling or an incorrect ruling, then they bring it to me. فَنَظَرْتُ لَكُمْ فِي أَحْكَامِهِ. But if you are going to make me the qadi, and then if I have to pass a incorrect ruling upon someone, then who are you going to take it to? Or if anyone else has to pass, you are putting me on power to all the other people. So then the people, they realized that, okay, we can't make him a qadi, and then they left him alone. So in short, basically, he was a real asset for Spain. Now, an important point to note is that although Yahya ibn Yahya studied and related the Muwatta, there is a debate on whether he mastered hadith. So you remember we spoke about it. I also sent a voice note that you can have a scholar who excels in a kitab, but that does not mean that he excels in a science. If a teacher all his life is teaching, say for example, Hidayah, so he might know the ibara of Hidayah like very well, but it does not mean that he can now give fatwa because he didn't read in other books. He doesn't know the principles of ifta. He doesn't know if another mujtahid has to mujtahid fil madhab has to differ, what the ruling will be, etc. Likewise for Sahih al-Bukhari, Ustad Shaykh al-Hadith, his entire life he can be reading Bukhari. So although Yahya ibn Yahya, he excelled in relating the Muwatta, many scholars, they felt that he was not really a muhaddith. He didn't excel in the field of hadith. So although he mastered the Muwatta and he excelled in fiqh, he was the great faqih and he was the great mufti and he was the great qadi. And he also became such a great imam. But in hadith, in the science of hadith, he did not excel. So Allama ibn Abdul Barr rahimahullah, and you know Allama ibn Abdul Barr rahimahullah is the greatest commentator of the Muwatta and is the Maliki. He said, وَكَانَ يَحْيَى بْنُ يَحْيَى إمام أهل بلده والمقتدى به منهم والمنظور إليهم والمعول عليه وكان ثقة عاقلا. He's mentioning all these praises. He mentions also that he would resemble Imam Malik rahimahullah. But then after he says, وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ بَصَرٌ بِالْحَدِيثِ. He wasn't a great muhaddith. And Allama Dhahabi rahimahullah, he agrees with us. He said, نعم ما كان من فرسان هذا الشأن. He was not, he didn't really excel in this, بل كان متوسطا فيه رحمه الله. He was average in the science of hadith. Now to mention about his trial, so although Allama Dhahabi rahimahullah, he quotes from Ibn al-Faradi that وكان يحيى بن يحيى ممن اتهم ببعض الأمر في الهج يعني في القيام والإنكار على أمير الأندلس. He's mentioning that Yahya, he was suspected of bringing about the revolt against the Amir. Now it's the new Amir, al-Hakam ibn Hisham. So due to this, he now fled, and there he sought protection there. And then he mentions that the Amir then wrote to him and told him to come back. So to mention the whole incident, basically, it's mentioned that Yahya, he tried to escape with his brother, whose name was, he tried to escape with his brother, and they both disguised themselves, and now they wanted to leave. So if you went to Andalus or you went to Damascus, you went to Jerusalem, you know, in those times, all these places that were built like in forts. So a town was like in a whole fort. Also in Halab, all these places, it's built like in a big fort. So now when they want to exit, there's guards at the gate. And the Amir, he issued the command that you must not hesitate. He told the guards there, you all must not hesitate. Whoever comes through the gate, whoever wants to flee, you kill them. And even if you just have suspicion, you just feel free, you can kill them. So Yahya's brother, he was friends with one of the guards there. Or rather, we can say he assumed that he was friends with one of the guards. So now he became confident. He said, okay, I got my contacts. He'll allow me to pass. But Yahya told him, no, that you know, this is such a huge thing. You can't just be so confident. But he thought, now, you know, when you're in that kind of a situation, so he thought that let me try my luck. Because if I'm successful, at least I'll manage to flee. And if I'm not successful, I'm going to be trapped up here and I'm going to be killed anyways. So when he came close now Yahya is like with him, but keeping his distance. So that person, now Yahya's brother, he uncovered his face. He thought, now this is my friend. He's going to let me pass through. I got my contacts here. But the minute the guard's eyes fell on Yahya's brother, immediately he captured him, he seized him, and then he now said, we're going to chop off his head. So Yahya now, he became more scared and he quickly went away from there and he disguised himself now even more. And then now he thought about his tribe, because remember we said it's al-Masmudi. So his tribe al-Masmuda, he went there on the way. So he thought, okay, these are my people. They are from my clan. Maybe I can seek protection here. They will hide me away. So he went and he thought, let me live with them. But they thought now we can exploit him. So when he went there because he was desperate. He wanted to live with the people of Masmud in the Masmuda tribe. But they thought, okay, let's exploit him. So they planned amongst themselves that we're going to assassinate him. And then all the wealth that he has, because he was accompanied by his slaves, and he obviously is now traveling for his life. So he got all his wealth with him. So they thought now we can seize, we can steal all this wealth of his. So one girl, she overheard this. So quietly she went to Yahya and she warned him that, you know what, they want to kill you and they want to steal everything you have. So even though you think that these are your people, you're from your clan, but they have these ulterior motives. So now Yahya, he needed to now go away. But if he's going to walk away, they're going to check him. So now he thought of a plan. So when Isha Salah, when they were all reading Isha Salah, he broke his Salah, like as if he needs to rush to the bathroom, he needs to go relieve himself. And then now they didn't have cars, so there was a maid there. He quickly mounted on that and he fled. Now they're all in namaz, they're all in salah, they don't know that he's fleeing. So you can see now how he's saving himself from death the second time. He freed himself from death, he saved himself. There when they were at the gate, they managed to kill his brother, but he managed to make his way, he managed to flee. Now the second time he's managing to flee. So after salah, now they noticed that he's not coming back. Only then they realized that he fled. So he traveled far enough until he felt that he was now safe. So he stopped at Toledo. Now here the people, they accepted him and they gave him protection. So the person who gave him a protection, his name was Abza. Now the ruler, Amir Hakam, he learned that Yahya is with them. So he demanded and he commanded them that you must surrender him, you'll need to send him to me, I need to kill him. But they were very loyal and they refused. They said, no, you're the leader, irrespective of what decision you take. You want to bring an army against us, you want to fight us, we are not going to give him, we're not going to betray Yahya. So you see, it's like I'm telling you guys a bedtime story here. So nevertheless, then the Amir now, he saw that these people here, they are very, very honest people and they're going to keep to their word to Yahya. They're not going to give Yahya over. So at the end, the Amir then he sent a letter and he said, okay, what I'll do, send him to me and I'm definitely not going to kill him also. And I'll also return all his land back to him and all the goods and money which he left here in Cordoba, I'll give all of that back to him. So then Yahya now he needed to decide, he's in a catch-22 situation, he made his tiqara, etc. But then towards the end of the reign of Hakam, he then came back to Cordoba. And when he came back, the king was, he fulfilled his word also. He noticed that now he's in the end days of his life, he's going to die. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he also blessed him again with the honor for the rest of his life. And then people again then began to appreciate his knowledge, and he became famous again. And when he reached Cordoba, he now sold all his slaves, and he wanted to buy new slaves. So someone told him, now why are you selling all your slaves? So he replied and he said, that I don't want to have the company of those who know all the details of the hardship which I went through, because they accompanied me. So they know exactly how I was almost going to be killed at the gate. I was almost going to be killed when living with my own people. So that's why I don't want them to know. So that's why I sell all these slaves and buy new slaves. With regards to his death, so according to Ibn al-Fardim, Yahya ibn Yahya, he passed away on the 22nd of Rajab in 234 Hijri. وامتدت أيامه إلى أن توفي لثمان بقين من رجب سنة 34 و200. This is Ibn al-Faradi. But Razi, he mentions that no, he passed away عشية يوم الأربعاء لثمان بقين من ذي الحجة. He didn't pass away on the 22nd of Rajab. Rather, he passed away on the 22nd of Dhul Hijjah, on Taza Wednesday. And others, they mentioned that he passed away in the year 233 Hijri. قيل إنما توفي سنة 33. This year is what Imam Ibn Abdul Barr rahimahullah mentioned. And they mentioned that when he passed away, then it was sanatain wa thamanina sana. But he was 82 years. So if he was 82 years, now again, I told you must have the sharp mind. So from all these years, who's going to be more correct? Will it be 233 or 234? So obviously it's going to be 234 because he was born in 152. When he passed away, he left two sons. One of the sons transmitted the Muwatta from him, and we are going to discuss about him tomorrow because we are going to go through his version of the, or rather his sanad. There are different sanads, all that we'll discuss tomorrow. And when Imam Yahya passed away, then he made Qadi Muhammad ibn Ziyad ibn Rabi', who was one of his close friends. He made him his representative now. And he also, it was Muhammad ibn Ziyad who performed his Janaza Salam. So basically, Yahya ibn Yahya, he came, he had this huge impact on Andalus. And right up until the Muslims ruled Andalus, they all were indebted to him. And even till today, the people of Northern Africa, they're all indebted to Yahya ibn Yahya, that his legacy continues right up until today. Now, inshallah, I'm going to discuss about Yahya ibn Yahya and the Muwatta because we are doing his transmission of the Muwatta. So there's consensus that he heard most of the Muwatta from Imam Malik, that not the entire Muwatta, most of the Muwatta. Like we said, it was only from Kitab al-I'tikaf that he did not hear directly from Imam Malik, but he heard it from a very reliable student of Imam Malik rahimahullah. So now let us very quickly discuss some of the reasons why we give preference to this riwayah. We mentioned so many in the beginning today and yesterday, so many different people who transmitted the Muwatta from Imam Malik. Some of them spent decades with Imam Malik, but why are we choosing this one here when he only spent few months with Imam Malik rahimahullah? So the first reason is that he was amongst the last students to hear the Muwatta, because he came in the end days of Imam Malik, and he was there for the Janaza of Imam Malik. So he is studying the Muwatta under Imam Malik during his final days. So what does mean? That this year is now the last version, because every year Imam Malik is editing it. The final version of the author's book is now towards the end of his life. And this is what Yahya ibn Yahya is getting. So this year makes it a reason why we give preference to his. The second reason is that he went and when he go study by Ibn Wahab. And Ibn Wahab, we mentioned all his benefits yesterday. You can go listen to that recording again. So Imam Yahya, he read the Muwatta again to him. The third reason why we're giving preference to this is that the Maliki scholars throughout time, they always preferred this. They always preferred his riwayah. So Ibn Abdul Barr rahimahullah in the Muqaddamah of Tamhid, he says, وَإِنَّمَا اعْتَمَدْتُ عَلَى رِوَايَةِ يَحْيَى بْنِ يَحْيَى الْمَذْكُورَةِ خاصة لموضعه عند أهل بلدنا من الثقة والدين والفضل والعلم والفهم ولكثرة استعمالهم لروايته. So وراثة عن شيوخهم وعلمائهم. So this is saying that they all throughout time, they all always they preferred his riwayah. So he's saying فكل قوم ينبغي, and this statement here, so one is the context and one is out of this context. You can also use this as golden words for the rest of your life. Look at these words here. من فضل الرحمن, you say, highlight Jaga. This is the place where you must highlight. So, فكل قوم ينبغي لهم امتثال طريق سلفهم فيما سبق إليهم من الخير وسلوك منهاجهم فيما احتملوا عليه من البر وإن كان غير مباحا مرغوبا فيه. That every nation they must follow the practice of their pious predecessors, even though other practices might be halal. So maybe if you come from the Deobandi school of thought, then you follow your elders in the school of thought, even though other practices might be halal. No one is denying that. And here you got Ibn Abdul Barr rahimahullah mentioning it. So for kullu comment, so you must highlight this here. If you got the Muqaddamah of Tamhid, and you must keep this here. Keep it in this context. That this is the reason why he's choosing the riwayah of Yahya ibn Yahya, and keep it as a goal and context for the rest of your life. Great words. Then the fourth reason is that because the Malikis, they constantly accepted this riwayah. So what that led to, it now the Malikis started to write commentaries on this riwayah of the Muwatta. You can see Ibn Abdul Barr rahimahullah, he wrote so many Malikis. So basically now, when they accepted it, they began to teach it and analyze it and focus on it and write commentaries on it. And so even though they had all the other transmissions of the Muwatta, but still, so that is why Qadi Iyaz rahimahullah said, قصدناها من جملة روايات الموطأ لاعتماد أهل أفقنا عليها غالبا دون غيرها إلا المكثرين مما اتسعت روايته وكثر سماعه. So they basically dedicated their lives to this transmission, and that's what gave it additional merit. And then the fifth benefit of his riwayah, or the fifth merit of it, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it such that whoever studied this Muwatta and then transmitted it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always blessed them with long lives. So we mentioned this in the first lesson towards the end, that Allah ta'ala, he blessed the narrators of the Muwatta with very long lives. So because of that, even though Imam Malik came before Imam Bukhari, our asanid to Imam Malik are shorter than our asanid to Imam Bukhari. So it led to very short asanid. And then, you know, from Imam Malik to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so between us and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, going via Yahya ibn Yahya, we get very, very short asanid. So this is also one reason, because Allah Ta'ala blessed them with long lives. So the asanid became very short. In spite of all of these benefits, there are some mistakes in his transmission. So basically, Yahya ibn Yahya, he made about 70 to 80 errors. And the scribe from him, Muhammad ibn Waddah, he corrected the errors from his side. Now tomorrow we will discuss whether this is a good thing or a bad thing. So this is how it then got transmitted through various manuscripts. So the person narrating it from Yahya ibn Yahya, he will go and correct all these 80 mistakes. But now the scholars, they mentioned that it wasn't actually Yahya ibn Yahya who made the mistakes. Rather, Yahya ibn Yahya, he is relating them incorrectly. So, you know, so if you hear something incorrectly, you know it's incorrect, but you want to just be precise. So you don't want to edit it from your side. So he felt that, no, I'm not going to edit it. I'm not going to correct it. I heard it in this way, even though it's incorrect, but because I heard it in this way, so I'm going to transmit it in this way. وفي حديث الليث وغيره أمهام نقلت وكل ما فيها فلم يغير ما في كتابه واتبعه الرواة عنه. He decided, okay, I'm not going to change it. If I heard it like this, even though I heard it incorrectly, I'll transmit it incorrectly. So this year became one of the setbacks. So basically, there are a few setbacks. The first is that he did not hear the few chapters of I'tikaf directly from Imam Malik. The second is because of transmitting these mistakes, his copy now is going to ultimately have the errors. And we'll discuss this, inshallah, in some detail tomorrow. Nevertheless, his transmission of the Muwatta became the most famous, to such an extent that if I just say we're doing Muwatta Malik, then if I don't even clarify whose Muwatta it is, it immediately the mind goes to the riwayah of Layth, of Yahya ibn Yahya al-Laythi, because that's how famous he is. So if you advertise, you say, I'm going to be teaching you Muwatta Malik, everyone will understand, okay, it's the riwayah of Yahya ibn Yahya al-Laythi. Now, going back to that objection that we quoted in the beginning yesterday, we can see that even though every year Imam Malik rahimahullah transmitted the Muwatta, this Tiraz and the objections of the Orientalists, it holds no merit. The only person whose riwayah differs a lot is that of Imam Muhammad, but he clearly made it into a new book, and it's also called Muwatta Imam Muhammad. It's no more called Muwatta Imam Malik. An interesting point to note from all of this that we discussed, you can see that how the Muwatta spread to so many different lands. That Ali ibn Ziyad is in Tunis, Yahya ibn Yahya is in Cordoba, al-Qa'nabi is in either Basra or either Mecca. So he's in the northern part of Iraq. Abu Mus'ab, he's in Medina, Yahya ibn Bukair and Ibn Qasim and Ibn Wahab, they all in Egypt. So you can see that they're all in different parts of the world. From the very generation after Imam Malik, his own students and his kitab already spread throughout the world. So now you can understand that statement of Imam Malik rahimahullah, that if you have to if you have to have a long life, you'll see what Allah Ta'ala will do when a person has only when he does it only for the pleasure of Allah. You can see in his very from his very students, it was already spread out throughout the world. So now I leave you with some words of wisdom of Imam Yahya. And these are not for you to only go and tweet and post, rather it's for you to make amal on. He said first, he used to say, Ma azyanul hilm bir rijal. To be tolerant, it's good for females and males, but it's even better if males have tolerance. Likewise, now you know he's loving this. I told you that the narrators of Muwatta, when you go read all of their lives, you find that they love this very lavish life. So he's living this very lavish life. So he's asked now, Anis Zohd fi dunya, if you're living it up, you got such a nice life. Well, so then where the whole concept of Zohd comes in. So this is the answer which he gave. Man lam yarda minha illa bil halal fahuwa fiha zahid. That if you are content with only halal, then you are zahid. وإن كان عليها مكبا حريصا. Even though it might seem to others that you are hankering after this world, but you're only happy with halal. You are not now taking out your second property on a bond and going into haram, taking out a loan from the bank. You are content with halal. Even though Allah Ta'ala blesses you, you're still considered as a zahid. The third statement of his is Man ja'ahu al-maut wa huwa yatlubu al-ilm lam yakun baynahu wa bayna al-anbiya fil jannah illa daraja. If a person is to pass away whilst he is seeking knowledge, then between him and between the anbiya, there will only be one stage in Jannah. So we make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keeps us studying ilm for the rest of our lives. And then now another person came and objected on him also, that he's living it up, got such a nice life. And this year, you know, the question which was asked about the assuming bad about one's teachers. So imagine if you had to see Imam Yahya ibn Yahya, see Imam Malik, how they're living it up. It's maybe a person could have got this thought in his mind, especially if they're witnessing it. You check, imagine you start tomorrow, he pictures up there with a Ferrari and he's living it up. He got one khadim to open the door for him. He got a huge mansion. It's natural. You're going to get, it's going to come into your mind. So, but you're having husnul dhan on your asatidam. So nevertheless, it was asked that you living it up, you're living such a lavish life. And those mammadha kana yatamanna al-faqr. Those who were before you, they used to hope for faqr. They used to hope for a life of poverty. So then he said, لا ينبغي لمن يعقل أن يتمنى ما تعوض به منه نبيه صلى الله عليه وسلم. That it's not appropriate for a person who has understanding that he must wish for that which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sought refuge, because then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam made dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala must save him from faqr, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala must save him from death. So this year you can see that he's saying that it's not, if the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to save him, then it's not appropriate that we must even hope for poverty. So as long as you earn your rizq through halal, then there is no problem to live it up. And especially, like, you know, Imam Malik rahimahullah is saying that to show the status and the dignity of the ulama. And this here is also from Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. Obviously, we're not discussing Imam Abu Hanifa, but Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah also, when you work out, and then, you know, you can work out the amount of dirhams, and then you get the amount of grams of gold and the amount the dinars and dirhams, the amount of grams of silver, and then you work it out, and then you think Shiyaka al-Fakhira, it's only 200 riyals. So 200 riyals is regarded as a lot, because you can buy a dafa or a seal for less than 100 riyals, but this is regarding as so expensive. So you realize that how expensive clothes they would wear, it would go into thousands and thousands of dollars even, if you have to do the conversion. So inshallah, tomorrow we'll discuss about the prince of the Muwatta, and thereafter the Asanid. And then inshallah we'll start on Tuesday. The reason for starting on Tuesday evening, inshallah, for those of you who studied Hidayah, you know, is that because it becomes a Wednesday. And then inshallah, when we're doing the Muwatta, I'll try my best. I'm saying I'll try my best to keep the lesson between 45 minutes to 1 hour, just so that you can attend the live lessons, because the recordings doesn't mean that now, okay, you can listen at your convenience. Rather, like I told you from the very beginning, and I even wrote it in a letter, that the pious scholars, they would go under so much sacrifice. So at least like it's not just passing on information. Basically, after every salah, I make dua that, Ya Allah, I don't have any spirituality to pass on to those who study under me. So, Ya Allah, you bless them with a spirituality directly from the ahadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and from the Muwatta of Imam Malik rahimullah. But the barakat is in attending the live lessons. So even though there are recordings, don't think that, okay, now today I'm feeling tired. Or today, they left out janaza salah of their close ones and they went attended the live lesson. So for us, please do try to attend the live. It's not just attaining information, it's also about attaining spirituality and barakat. So please do try to attend the live lessons. Inshallah, I'll try my best to keep it to 45 minutes, from 45 minutes to 1 hour, just so that you can all be there for the live lesson. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.